It was the beach that we all loved as kids. All us kids. There was my neighbors, and my neighbors' neighbors, and then their neighbors across the street. There was something about the water that just made you forget. It made you feel special. You could go right up into that water and those waves would just gently wash over your feet, cleaning them. Waves would pull you down too, sometimes make your feet sink deeper and deeper into the sand. Well, my mama used to say that the Chinese was pulling me from below because they wanted me to come visit. Of course, every time I saw a Chinese person, I wondered how they'd come up from the beach. Well, that was Mama, always telling stories. She told stories to forget. And now I remember her stories to make sure I don't forget. See, it was hard growing up down south. My daddy, he was always doing this or that, gone for weeks at a time. I never quite knew where he was. I knew he worked a lot, so he says. So he's told me. But I don't believe that's the case anymore. Of course, my mama never did come out and say it, but I believe my daddy, he was going with other women. I just know that. Don't ask me how. I do know it, but I do know it. So it was really just my mama and my brothers and sisters growing up by ourselves. We always had lots of neighbors coming over, bringing us this or that. My mama did some sewing. She was a good seamstress. Why, I can sew a button on a shirt faster than any machine, because my mama taught me that. Well, at night, my mama would gather us around with all of her work that she had to do for the Smiths down the block and the Cleopatras. They were right across the train tracks. The Stuyvesants, they were there too, wanting to get their clothes done just right by Mama. So Mama would put all of her clothing jobs in the corner, right next to her big chair that she loved to sit in. And all us kids, every night at 7 p.m., would gather around Mama, and she'd tell us stories. Well, she always told us stories about the water. My mama loved the sea. Yes, she did. I don't know. I think my mama was a mermaid in another life. I used to tell her that too and make her laugh. So one night my mama's sitting in her chair. Me, my brother Davy, my other brother Stevie, my brother Chuck, my sister Louise, my other sister Mary, and my little baby sister that we used to call Clover, because she was just always lucky. She was lucky to be born. My mama said it was a miracle. I don't know why, but whatever Mama says, well, it's just so. So all of us are sitting around a chair, listening to Mama tell her story. She'd say that sunset was the most beautiful sunset I ever did see. And she'd describe it like the sunset was the 4th of July, with the bright green of the sea and the bright red in the sky, the bright blue, the deep, deep blue of the setting sun, surrounded by just a rainbow of colors. Of course, it sounded better when Mama described it, I know. But it was these stories of sailboats on the sea and fishermen on the sea and mermaids in the sea and just people enjoying the sea that made us forget that we was hungry. Now I know that we were poor. But you know what? When we gathered around Mama's big chair, we knew we was loved. Yes, we did. Yes, we did, ma'am. We knew we was loved. We might go to school and get made fun of because our shoes were a little raggedy or my dress was a little torn. But that wouldn't last long, because Mama would sew it right up. Of course, I never wanted to bother Mama, because I always ripped my dresses. I mean, it's not easy keeping up with the boys. You stumble over a rock, and there you go. You got a torn dress. My Mama had a big pile of clothes she had to work on. I didn't want her to see my dress. But she'd see it. She was old Eagle Eyes, and she would see it. And she would sew it up right quick. Till she taught me. Then I did my own sewing. I was good, too. But my Mama, she kept us all together. She kept us all happy. She worked herself hard. And my daddy would come home, every once in a while. Maybe like once a month, once every couple of months. He would bring us kids some presents, some this or that. But I just really wanted my papa there. Why couldn't he just stay? Why do you have to keep going away?
Because I need to work.
He used to tell us.
I need to feed my kids' mouths.
Well, there was oftentimes, it was Mama, I know, who was feeding us kids' mouths. But my Mama never did hold a grudge. Eventually, they say, my daddy done died. I don't really know what happened to him, but eventually I did go to visit his graveside. And I did say, thank you, Daddy, for loving my Mama enough to make all us kids. 'Cause without my brothers and sisters, I just don't know. I never would have had all that fun that I had, and I never would have felt all that love that I felt. And I still feel. Well, you know, my brothers and my sisters, we remember all Mama's stories. Some of us remember better than others. And some of us remember certain stories over other stories. But I always remember my Mama and the stories of the sea. And she would describe a sailboat sailing on the sea with the wind in its sails. She would describe the creaks and the little noises and the dings and the tings that the sailboat would make when the wind was blowing clear across that bow. How my Mama knew this, I really do not know, because my Mama really didn't sail, which is, again, returning to my theory that my Mama was indeed a mermaid at some point. I mean, it may sound silly, but how else does a woman who's never really been on the sea know about so much about the sea? Of course, you have to believe in that sort of thing, and I understand if y'all don't, but, well, I do. So my Mama's been gone now a few years. Oh, that was harder, much, much harder than when my daddy passed. When my Mama going, we had all us kids were around her bedside. We were all just loving on her and hugging her neck till she told us to stop now, because it was time for her to go. Of course, none of us wanted her to go, now did we? No, we didn't. But, you know, when Mama says she's got to go, we always knew Mama had to go. And like I said before, Mama was right. It was her time. She said goodbye to each and every one of us. She told us how much she loved us, but she didn't really have to say that because, of course, we knew it. She knew it, and we knew it 'cause she lived it. She lived it every day with her tender touch, her warm meals, her good stories, and her biggest, bestest hugs. Even the neighbors' kids would come by to get a hug, but they never said that. Little Susie used to come by every day at 2 o'clock, suddenly hungry. My mama would give her a little sandwich, but then she would hug Susie. I swear it was for a good 10 minutes. I don't know why Susie's mama didn't hug her, but my mama told me, don't be jealous now. That's just shades of the devil. So I didn't want to be shades of the devil, so I determined not to be jealous anymore. And it mostly worked. So we said our goodbye to our mama. And it was hard. It was a hard time. But she closed her eyes. And she just went away. And that was that. And I went sailing last week. I did go sailing. 'Cause I think it was something my mama used to do. Whether she was down below as a mermaid under the sea, or whether in another life she was a real sailor. And I just went out there on the sea. I was real quiet like. My friend, he took me out. He knew what I was doing. I was communing with my mother. And I felt her. I felt the shores. I felt that sailor on the boat with me. My mother was there with me too. And all of a sudden, the wind blew a little stronger. The waves came up a little bit more. And I walked back to my sailor friend because I was a little nervous. And he told me, you don't have to be nervous because I'm with you now. And like your mama, I'm not going to let anything happen to you. And we was married 6 months later. Thank you, Mama.